A question that has been raised and has been percolating through the meeting is really about kind of relates to the role that Crescent can play as a connector. And what I mean by that is, so Crescent is largely involved in sort of producing the academic science. And then a lot of you are related to the emergency management, so the application of that science to on the ground real world work. And so something that we're wondering about is how Crescent can work as a connector. So bring how Crescent can sort of work in the community to connect the science to the people who are applying it. So I'd love to just take an opportunity to hear from the crowd, hear from any of you, any ideas that you have with relation to the role that Crescent can play in facilitating not so much the dissemination of the science, but connecting the people who need to sort of get. I'm not sure if I'm making complete sense here, but thinking about ways to connect the science to the people who need it. All right, we've got one over here.
Well, first of all, you're doing it. I mean, this is it, right? And you're doing an excellent job. And the only suggestion I would have is, maybe repackaging, rethinking, coming up with different ways of basically doing what you're doing here.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, absolutely, right here.
So as a practitioner who needs this information, I think as you get to the point where you think it's ready to be pushed out into the industry, I think it's find a few key people to kind of talk through it with you and make sure it's presented in a way that's usable. The other thing too is, I'll just start within engineering. You go across different disciplines. Every discipline has a different language. I look at all the terms up there. I don't know half of them, So we need to use words that people understand when we talk about these things. I think I heard early about kind of using the same words and the same messaging as we want to get more broadly getting the information out. But we all need to understand that we need to understand what we're talking about and making sure it's the same thing. And then, work with practitioners to make sure it's presented in a way that's useful for them.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know a lot of the dissemination often happens through state and federal agencies like Dogami and USGS. So if anyone has any specific thoughts about how Crescent can connect with those state agencies and federal agencies, we would love to hear about that as well. Yes.
Yeah, I guess as you frame the question, it kind of went from the science of understanding the earthquake hazard to communicating, but there's kind of a missing step, and it's understanding how the built environment is impacted by that earthquake hazard, and building with the intent of building more resilient communities. And so that's where some engineering and practitioners can really bridge that gap, I think, and improve our overall preparedness.
Awesome. Thank you. Got a microphone coming from back there.
Yeah, I think that especially this year, as we're in an election year, looking at the people running for state office, they're looking for ways to stand out with their community. And I think getting this data to them would be a really good way, while they're still motivated to be engaging with the public right now, to to ask them to stand for this as a cause and to really be interfacing with them in the next few months as they're trying to win their elections, both at the local and the state level. I know here in Portland, we're going through a massive charter reform. And so there's also a lot of candidates in the running who are ready and willing to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Very timely considering the debate coming up tonight. Any other thoughts, ideas, questions?
Thanks. I think the importance, and you're already doing it, is really calling it Cascadia region. So we're dealing with the 3 states, but we're also dealing with a province up there in Canada. So where we can all align and move forward on products that make sense for all of those groups, because our people don't stay in their region. They travel, we have tourists, we all have the same problems.
Yeah, thank you. I know someone touched on that earlier about just coordinating the colors between the maps that are being produced by different states. Yeah, anything else in this field? Yes.
My tables heard this. Both my tables have heard this, but I think one of the things that this room needs to understand, as much as the science is very important, and there's difference in opinion all the way across the board, Crescent can help as somebody to come together and say, you're communicating to scientists who are geeking out on all the nerdy data, and then you have Joe Schmo, the dumbest public you can imagine. Our messaging needs to be for Joe Schmo, and it needs to be Cascadia is a hazard. It can happen tomorrow, and you need to be prepared for it. And so, I told this a couple times. I'm sorry for repeating it, but like 5-6 years ago, with the 1,000-year gap, like they were saying there could be a 1,000-year gap in between the quakes. We might be in a rest zone. If you give the public anything to grab onto that I might not be in the hazard zone, I'm in the yellow-white zone instead of the yellow zone or whatever it is, they're going to grab onto that and argue it and bring it up. So as this group of scientists, I think we need to have a very consistent message that says this is a problem and we need to deal with it. That doesn't mean you don't communicate your science. I think we just need to have our scientific arguments about the nitty-gritty of the data where they belong, and then come together and present the same message in a way that everybody can understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really a theme that's emerging, is the importance of customizing our message to the specific communities that we're working with. Any other thoughts on this topic? Yeah, right here in the back.
Two things. One is ensuring that as you are communicating information to the public, I think a very important point to keep in mind is to ensure that it doesn't contradict or conflict with already published products that are out there. That is inherently important, because that's when we start getting to mixed messaging or confused messaging. It's very, very important to ensure that you are working with the respective state agencies in the states as new data comes online, so that we can evaluate that with our Tsunami Advisory Council, for example, which is made up of coastal planners, emergency managers, scientists, county commissioners, things like that. There is a very important step about how we actually get information out to the public. And so we want to make sure that we follow those sort of approaches, and we don't cause miscommunication. And second thing is, if I missed this, I apologize. One of the things that I've really appreciated with the COPES Hub effort has been a monthly seminar series highlighting really neat science that's going on across all disciplines. And I would encourage CRESCENT to be thinking about that as maybe an avenue for getting important scientific information out to the broader academic agency specialists, so that we are obviously engaged with the progress that you all will be doing over the next few years, because I think that's another very, very important element of the work that you all are doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, all right, one more over here. I'll race you, Jill.
We're gonna be faster.
Thank you. Here's an idea from British Columbia. Every October the 10th, we have a province-wide shakeout day. Is it the same date here? Yeah. October, okay. October is coming up. As scientists, we need to stand together. COPES and CRESCENT should have a one-page advert in the Portland Times, a manifesto, those 3 points that you mentioned, just to give maximum publicity.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your engagement as we think about moving forward and how we make these connections between the ivory tower and the real world in which we all actually live. We're all most of us in this room live in this hazard zone. So this is something that will impact us as well. So we now are going to I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit, but you saw that the raffle is coming. So for our concluding activity, if you would grab one of the index cards on your table, so what we'd like you to do is take a moment to respond to one of or both of these prompts. If you want to respond to both of them, you can write on the front and back. So this is just to get an idea of really what you have gotten out of today. So your first question is something you learned today. Then the second one is something you're excited about. And if you want to sort of build into that second one, something you're excited about, you can also think about who you want to connect with after this meeting. So we've had a lot of opportunities to do some networking, to connect across organizations. So you can also think about what your next step is, what your action item is in terms of continuing to build this network after the meeting is over today. So take a minute or two to write some things down on your index card. Okay, so we'll take your index cards at the end. So if you want to leave those on your table, that would be great. But just to finish up, I'd love to hear from a couple of people, just something that you're taking away from today. It can be related to one of the prompts or any of the discussion that we've had today. But what are some of the things that you are walking away from today's meeting with that you might not have had when you came in the door this morning?
I'd say the collaboration. I didn't realize there were so many entities and people at different levels that really have the same challenges that I face. So the collaboration and relationship building, I think that's something Crescent does really well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really exciting for me just to see how many different groups in this area are working on different aspects of the same problem. So I definitely agree. Yes.
I just want to say thank you to all of you who are doing really empathetic, practical research that's going to save lives like this. This is really the work I want to be seeing in the future and how we build a better world together. So I'm just profoundly grateful that there are so many of you who genuinely and deeply care.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Round of applause for all of you. Any other takeaways that you'd like to share? Yes.
So I have kind of a collaborative example. Was able to connect with somebody from OSU, and their grad students have to practice writing grants as part of their graduation. And we realized maybe they could write actual grants for some of our counties instead of just making up a grant. And some of our counties could really use that help. So there's conversations there that may actually help further some of this resilience effort just by a conversation. So we made that happen. I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really cool to hear about some of the cool ideas that are germinating in the room today.
I just want to mention it. It's one thing to read about Crescent on a website, but it's actually really nice to kind of come here and see the living, breathing organism, so to speak. And I think it's really important. At least I spent 17 years working for the Southern California Earthquake Center. It's now changed its name. And I was sort of steeped in that environment, but it's really refreshing to see the level of thoughtfulness and foresight and things that you're doing to make this the best that it can be. So I really appreciate the real, sort of effort that you're dedicating to thinking this out and engaging people early. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to thank all of you today for your engagement. This engagement is really what makes Crescent the special effort that it is, because we are really bringing together so many different voices, and hopefully that is something that Crescent can continue to do over its lifespan, is really expand the diversity of perspectives that it is bringing in. So I just want to thank all of you for your participation today. We're going to move now to the exciting part, where we get to have the raffle for those $50 Powell's book cards.
We just have a few additional notes and requests for you. So the first is, this would not be possible without funding from the National Science Foundation for the Cascadia Region Earthquake Science Center Cooperative Agreement. So we're greatly appreciative for that. But moreover, as Kellen mentioned, we're extremely grateful to all of you for taking the time to come here today, to take time out of your schedules, to be so engaged, as well as Crescent senior personnel for your willingness to engage with this. So thank you so much to all of you. Last couple notes. First, save the date that we tentatively have on the schedule for the next year's workshop to be June 26th to 27th. We have an evaluation form that will arrive in your email inbox probably tomorrow, or you can scan this QR code here and take it now. And we would really appreciate if you would take this, because it, one, helps us understand how to improve this workshop itself, but two, a lot of the things that we discussed today that we've been trying to distill in these notes, those same questions will be in the feedback form, and that's really useful for us in terms of figuring out what our plan looks like for partnerships and applications going forward. So we'd greatly appreciate that. And then last two housekeeping things. One is that immediately after this ends, we will be taking down the Lego poster PVCs to return those to Portland State University. And so if you don't mind just taking your poster down. And the second is, if you are like me and you typically throw out your name badges from conferences and you would like to recycle your lanyard, we will take those. But otherwise, please feel free to take them and enjoy them. So that's all we have. Thank you so much for coming today.
I just want to add two little things. One housekeeping thing is that we can spread the word of Crescent by having good Crescent swag. So on your way out, there is please stop by the table to collect a Crescent mug and a shopping bag to brandish around town. The other thing I wanted to say, the thing I wrote down on my card for what I'm excited about, it was the who isn't in the room today. And so I think this is great. We've kind of pushed the network. We're expanding, but each of you is now a little hub for who else we can reach. So I really look forward to hearing from you in our future conversations about who's going to be here next time and how can we continue to widen the web. So thank you in advance for that spreading of the good word. Thank you.